Hi, and welcome to this pre-recorded webinar on the basics of marketing strategy. Now, if you have ultimate responsibility for your business performance, but are struggling with what marketing assets are actually achieving, then this will give you a much better understanding of what is going on and what should be going on. Good marketing strategy will affect nearly every aspect of the business, and this will help you see how. Finally, in the last part, you should discover the most effective way to grow your business. I'll give you a quick hint. It's easier and cheaper than you probably think. Please enjoy.
Hi there, and welcome to this relatively short webinar on the basics of a marketing strategy. Now, before we start, you should know that only 18% of FTSE 100 CEOs come from a marketing background. 80% of CEOs are not very impressed by the work done by their marketers and believe that marketers were poor business performers. 70% of those same CEOs admitted that they might be somewhat responsible for the marketer's poor perceived performance. This is usually as a consequence of having steadily lost trust in their marketer's business abilities or subsequently given up on holding marketers accountable because they don't understand what the marketers are doing. Don't forget that the CEO is responsible for the entire business, but if there is no sales and marketing, there is no business, only cost. And finally, as a CEO, you can't do everything well. You may not have come from a marketing background, but you do need to have a good understanding of it. But don't expect that you can be, straight off the bat, a king of marketing and funnel generation. So who is this webinar basically designed for? Well, CEOs of businesses with up to 100 employees, or founders of high growth early stage businesses, i.e. those who already have some turnover, those who don't have a sales or marketing background, but do have ultimate responsibility for the company's business performance. The other group who might find it useful is startups. Now, just be aware that we're going to cut quite a lot out of this. So if you are doing a startup or just in the process of about to do a startup, this will be useful, but you need to take some preliminary planning steps before doing what I show here. And I'll do another webinar on that to follow. So who am I? My name is Guy Bucknell. I started as what used to be called a below-the-line specialist in London, working on major brands such as Forte Leisure Breaks, British Airways, Panasonic Business Systems, all sorts of other people. I then was a founder and CEO of my own business in the digital signage industry for 11 years, from 1998 to 2009, and then had a successful exit out of that. And so for nearly the last 10 years, I have been plying my trade as a marketing strategist and as an interim director and a CEO mentor, mostly through the tech and agri-food industries. So what are you going to discover in this next 40 minutes or so? Well, I'm going to take you through a 6-step process. The first two we're just going to touch on because they're very deep subjects in their own right, because customer personas and value propositions. But then I'm going to take you through the next 4 bits, which are probably something that you know less about, and is less talked about in webinars, but for me is actually crucial to producing and understanding a good marketing strategy. So if you're not producing it, that's fine. But by doing this or having this idea of how this framework works, then it'll give you a very good idea of what your marketers are about. So we're going to cover a customer journey, what it is and how it works. And then how you can produce a marketing framework from that, and then produce a media plan from that, and then that leads into creating a sales funnel, and then how we'll just touch on how best to view your sales funnel and how to sweat the assets out of it. By the end of it, you will have knowledge how to build a basic marketing strategy, understand what makes for good high-level KPIs, which is absolutely essential, and easily identify both good practice and what's quite often referred to as bollockology, i.e. those things where people are just yada 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 at you, and using big words that make it sound good. So let's kick straight into it. We're going to look at, first off, the customer and customer personas. Then we'll look at value propositions, and then we'll get into the customer journey. So a quick basic fact of life. Whatever anybody says, marketing is actually about the numbers. But to achieve those great numbers, we need to understand what is driving them, and that's the humans. But don't forget that it's actually all about the numbers to start with. To understand the humans, however, that are relevant to your business, you need to do two tasks. You need to produce a customer persona, at least one, probably 3 or 4, and a value proposition. And that's a value proposition for each one of those customer personas. So think of customer personas as your new imaginary best friends forever. You think you know them, i.e. your customers, but I bet you keep changing your mind about the detail. Okay, so if somebody says, who's your ideal customer? On Monday morning, you'll say, oh, it's the guys who buy blue Volvos. But actually, when somebody asks you on Thursday, when you've had some other customer interaction, you say, well, actually, it's not actually the guy, it's the gal who buys the red Metros. Okay. What you need to know is, how does the rest of their life affect your business? Okay. And do you understand the context when your mutual worlds coincide? Now note that this is likely to be without your direct knowledge, i.e. when they come across your brand or your business in some other context. So what you need to be doing throughout your marketing journey is you want to be directing your creative efforts at one person, not 150,000 potential customers, because it's absolutely impossible. You need to create someone who your customer will understand, but does not have to be 100% identical to. All right? Be brave, really go into their story. So what we're saying here is that you can't write or produce work for 150,000 people, particularly if only 10 of them are going to become customers. So what you do is you create somebody who's completely imaginary, but who your sweet spot customer will identify. In fact, all of your 150,000 will be able to identify and understand. Again, it's why you want to have as few of them as possible, because you want them to understand that type of person. They don't have to be exactly the same as those people. They don't have to drive the same car or have the same number of kids, etc. They just need to really be able to empathize with that person and then realize that they have similar issues or problems that need solved as that person. So quote, Jenny is a C1, C2 female with 2 kids and a husband, is of some basic use, but not much, particularly when we get into talking about the use of social media, etc. And why should you make the effort to do this? Well, I can't stress enough that time spent on customer personas is rarely wasted, but keep it down to no more than 5 profiles. Sometimes people get into the habit of going, oh, right, well, actually, I'll write 10. Don't. I usually write 3 or 4 maximum, and up to 5 if needs be. Okay? And these will be used as the basis of your value proposition and all the customer journey work that is going to follow. All right? Well, I cannot stress enough how understanding that customer persona and creating that customer persona right at the start is really important. We're not going to go into too much of it here because, as I said right at the top, this is quite a deep subject. But if you go to my blog at bucknell.info and just hit the blog tab, you'll see there's a couple of posts on it. I think the one on customer personas is a featured article on there. So value propositions. This is after. So remember, we have a value proposition for each customer persona that we created. The thing about why we do this is not to be misunderstood. Okay, it is so easy for you to put communications material out there, and for it to be taken in the wrong context or to be seen in a context that you didn't understand. So you need to keep your value proposition really, really straightforward. So why make the effort? Well, again, remember, you're not trying to make friends here, but you are trying to convert people into customers, i.e. they have got to understand exactly what they're doing or why they're getting involved before they hand over any money to you. You need to also understand that they're not interested in you at all, really, unless they see value in it for them. So that's why we're identifying what value we can propose that we're going to offer to them. And for potential new customers, they need to understand that value immediately and with no confusion. All right, so we need to keep our value proposition in what we're going to call the first moment of truth, in the stimulus and awareness phase, as simple as possible, but we'll get onto that later. So the basics behind creating value propositions is ask yourself 4 basic questions. What can I do for this person? What are their alternatives to me or my business? What's the primary value point to them, i.e. why should they pay attention to me right now? And bearing in mind that that is not necessarily why should they give me money right now. It's why should they pay attention to me? And finally, what proof do I have to offer? Again, if you want to know more about customer personas, just go to the blog at www.bucknell.info and hit the blog tab. So, having said all that, let's crack on now into the customer journeys themselves. There's a very famous picture of Albert Einstein, and you're probably saying to yourself, what the hell has Einstein got to do with this? It's really just to illustrate a very salient point. So if you ask yourself, you probably know that the second theory of relativity, i.e. E equals mc squared, etc., that you've sure have heard of many times, you probably know that it's pretty important to life, the universe and everything. But do you really understand it? Well, the same applies to customer journeys and nearly all businesses. In fact, the fact that they know it's kind of central to everything, but don't feel the need to understand the detail. And you really do need to change this, because customer journeys are central to what you do. So to explain how a customer journey works, there's various tools and people out there who think, but my favorite one is this short video of 1 minute 43 seconds that was actually produced by Google back in 2012 or 2013. The theories have actually been around for a long time, and Google pretends they invented it, but they didn't really. But have this because it explains it quite nicely straight away.
Marketers have been using a 3-step mental model of marketing for a long time. Stimulus, like developing a TV ad. Shelf, focusing on point of sale, which has historically been called the first moment of truth. And experience, people take the product home and experience it. They could have a good experience or a bad experience, and they share it. This is the second moment of truth. If marketers spend time on these 3 steps, they should succeed, right? We investigated this theory. We conducted a comprehensive study with research partner Shopper Sciences using 5,000 shoppers across 12 categories, from groceries to cars and financial products. The goal, show where influence takes place as shoppers move from undecided to decided. We found that the average shopper used 10.4 sources of information, up from 5.3 sources in 2010. We asked shoppers what sources they used to make decisions, when they used it, and how influential is each source. When we lined up their responses, a 4th step appeared in the marketing mental model, the 0 moment of truth. This is when consumers do their research, get smart about alternatives, read reviews, look for coupons and comparison shop, all before going to the shelf. When we compare the steps, the 0 moment of truth pops up as highly relevant and influential. Consumers have changed the way they have approached decision-making. As a marketer, have you kept up, or are you still using the old mental model? There's a new mental model now, and marketers that can now keep all these steps spinning gain a very competitive advantage in today's marketplace.
So, what that very useful video from Google explains is, well, they said there's 4 moments of truth, or 4 phases in the moment of truth theory. Okay, we're going to add a 5th one. But let's just quickly recap on what they were saying. You have the stimulus phase, whereas essentially where your potential customer, or well, let's call it for the time being, your potential customer is made aware of you or stimulated to take some action. They then move into the 0 moment of truth phase, which is essentially where they're doing their discovery. Not necessarily social discovery, but they're doing their research on you. The first moment of truth is not necessarily where they make a purchase, but it is where they make their first commitment to you of making some form of, whether it be downloading a PDF or a white paper or something. But you'll see again where this first moment of truth is flexible. The second moment of truth is whether they enjoyed that experience and did they get what they were expecting. And the ultimate moment of truth is actually what they tell their friends, whether that be in person or by social media or whatever. But essentially it's what they're willing to put their name to. Okay? So in real life terms, if you think of back in the day, buying cars in the old days, if you decided that in fact actually the stimulus to buying a new car might have been, oh, well, my car I've got at the moment is a bit worn out, or it's 3 years old or whatever, I need to change my car. And the zero moment of truth would be when they go down to the not car auctions, but car dealerships, and they go from BMW to Volvo to Alpha to whatever, and they would talk to the salesman and they would take away a brochure, etc. And the first moment of truth might be when they come back and take a test drive and then eventually buy it. The second moment of truth would therefore be how they enjoyed the whole experience of the purchasing, and then, but also for the next 2 or 3 years, did the car do what they expected? Did it deliver on what they wanted from it? Did the servicing go well? And the whole experience, did they get what they were looking for? And the ultimate moment of truth being, what did they tell their friends? Would they buy another one? Would they advise their friends to buy one, or what? Okay, so let's kick on to the next phase, the marketing strategy framework. And this is the core of your marketing planning and potentially your sales forecasting, etc. It can be a little bit long and complicated, so if needs be, rewind back through the video if you possibly can and go through it again and again if needs be. So what are we going to look at here? Well, we're going to look at the basics of building a marketing framework. We're going to do it as a step-by-step process. And at the end of it, you'll have identified what messaging is to be used in what media and when, as just one of the huge benefits. So before we go any further, let's just quickly remind ourselves of those 5 phases or stages in the moment of truth theory. We have the stimulus and awareness phase, when they first hear about us the zero moment of truth when they do the research phase, first moment of truth when they take some action to make some positive action towards us, second moment of truth is did they enjoy that experience, and the ultimate moment of truth is what they're willing to, are they willing to do it again, and are they willing to tell their friends. So what we're going to do is we're going to literally go through each of the actions that a customer will do when interacting with you. Now, I quite often start this off actually just by using a bunch of post-it notes on a plain wall. But actually, ultimately, what that comes into, I use basic PowerPoint here, and I create this sheet where in the top left-hand corner, I name the persona that this customer journey is for. This one happens to be for Jenny, and the value proposition that for that customer persona with this business. This is actually, I'm going to take you through a real-life example of a client of mine of a few years ago. I won't tell you their name because they've now gone on and doing some great stuff. But they essentially produce homemade pizza kits, frozen homemade pizza kits that are very good for kids really enjoy and all that sort of stuff. So we start off just by listing every action that this person is going to go through, that Jenny is going to go through while she's interacting with our brand and our product. So it starts off that, just in normal life, she's just being a mum. I'm sure she does lots of other interesting things. She will have a job and all that sort of stuff. But in this scenario, she is just doing her normal stuff of being a mum. So once she's heard about the product, she will generally go online. And then as this product is not available online at the moment, she then has to go into store, arrive in store to buy it. She then makes an in-store purchase. She takes it home and defrosts it. She does the preparation because this particular product, you can take all the leftovers out of the fridge and add that, make your own pizzas the way you want them. So there's all the preparation. Then you've got to cook it. Then you enjoy the eating. Then you have some clearing up because in this particular case there is flour everywhere. And then once you've enjoyed it, you share the news. From there, once I've got the basic outline of how it works. I then start adding a little bit more detail where required. So for example, put some arrows in here and where they're going to move through it, but actually I start adding a little bit more detail. So when she goes online, for example, she's probably going to a competitor's website and their social media, our website, our Facebook feed, our Twitter, etc. And also when she's in store, she's probably going to see other competitor pizza products and other frozen products. She may well look at them and just and do a little comparison, etc. From there, she moves in store, etc. Now you'll see also the word defrost here has this big scratching line around it, and the reason for this is actually when we went through this, we realised that this defrost process was a bit of a hiccup in the whole process, because it couldn't be defrosted in a microwave or defrosted in the oven. It had to be defrosted naturally for the best rising of the dough, etc. So we highlighted that at this stage as it might be an issue. Then added the arrows just to make sure to remind ourselves in which way they're going. And when you get to the bottom, you'll see share the news, and the arrow goes right and then goes vertical. And so we can see here it goes right and then vertical. Now, when she shares the news, or this is about sharing the news, or whether she would do it again. If she is going to buy the product again, she'll probably come back into the customer journey about here. Or maybe here, because she might want to find out some more, etc. But if she's telling her friends, they're going to come in here or in this bit, particularly if it's come with a positive recommendation. She'll say, go and have a look at it, or whatever. It might be that her friends come back in at this stage and say, oh yes, Jenny was telling me about, when they see it in store, and say, Jenny was telling me about that product. Yes, and here we go. So we've done the very basic action section of the customer journey. The next thing we're going to do is we can then break those actions into those 5 moments of truth, or those 5 phases of the moment of truth theory. So here you've got the stimulus and awareness phase, the 0 moment of truth phase, the first moment of truth, the second moment of truth, and the ultimate moment of truth. Now, note that actually you can split this these lines up to wherever you want to put them. Okay, they're always going to go in that order, but for some people you might put more detail in the stimulus awareness phase and move this line further up. First moment of truth might actually be when you have driven them in store, for example. You might determine that as your first moment of truth, etc. So I've set this up one for looking for the CEO of that business, for the entire business. But a marketing director, for example, might be in the process of where they're actually first moment of truth is when they get them into store, and the second moment of truth is actually when they make the purchase, and so on, or the ultimate moment of truth when they make the purchase. That's a lot of detail. We'll cover that another time. But for the CEO, this is the basics all the way through. So we have now applied to the actions, we have applied those 5 phases. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to identify the customer's needs in each one of these phases. Now, the thing to note here is that the need changes in each phase. So in the stimulus and awareness phase, Jenny actually just has a general need that she needs to feed her kids. Bear in mind, she's not actually thinking about us at this point. So she has a general need to feed the kids, and a general need that she'd like when she does. She's looking for something different but simple to do, and so on. But note that when she gets into the 0 moment of truth, and she's heard about us and she's aware of us, and she's actually taking a little bit of action towards finding out about us, her needs have changed. They've become a lot more detailed. Now she's interested in the concept, but she's much more interested in the detail now of, is it tasty? Is it nutritious? Is it easy and fun? Is it value? Is it going to give value? And is it going to be free from, because she's feeding it to her kids, and so on. And so with each customer journey, these needs are different in the same way as the actions are different. For if you're doing customer journey for selling cars, as we were talking about earlier on, there'd be different actions in the same way that their needs would be different. And this again is where the persona is very, very important, because everybody's needs are going to be widely varied. Okay, so what you're best to do is on your persona, pick the needs that Jenny would need. All right. Some other real life customer in real life might have some other needs. They're probably going to have the basics of what Jenny requires. But they can then also find out about those other needs as they go through. But you couldn't write all the needs of the 50 or 100 needs for multiple clients or potential customers. So pick Jenny and do her needs. And then you say, again, move into the first moment of truth. Again, the needs might be similar, but there will be some change in each of them. So taste does and value does appear in the 0 moment of truth, and it also appears in this case in the first moment of truth. But her context has changed. So if now she's in store, and she's likely to be shopping with her 2 young kids. And they may well be nagging or have disappeared into another aisle, and she's wondering where they're gone. And so she needs to be able to find it easily and grab it easily. When she gets it home and she's then about to enjoy the product itself, her needs have changed again. In this case, it needs to be easy. It needs additional ingredients, or it might need additional ingredients depending on the product. The kids need to enjoy it. It needs to taste great, and it needs to be worth the effort. And finally, the need at the end is that we want her to think that it was great. So we've identified the needs. Now, if we have her needs and we have the value proposition, we can then start creating our messaging. And our messaging in each of these phases matches the need and the value proposition. So if the need changes in each phase, then our messaging changes in each phase. Now, bear in mind, at this stage, we're not trying to get the exact words that we would use in a piece of communication, for example, in here, in the website. All right, that's for your copywriters, or when you sit and think about specifically about copy. What we're talking about here is the basic message that we need to get over in that piece of communication. So you'll see throughout the customer journey that they have all these needs, okay? But when we're in the stimulus and awareness phase, we want to keep it really simple, stupid, or as simple as possible. So we tie our need down, or the messaging that we're going to or the need that we're going to answer with this messaging to specifically as just for these needs in this phase. And we apply that to each of the phases all the way through. Finally, we can then add the media where we are going to deliver this messaging or have this conversation. The word media here is very broad. Yes, it could, of course, be traditional thinking of media where it is TV or radio or Facebook or whatever it may be. But actually, it's in this case, it's the media, the medium where this conversation takes place. So WM there stands for word of mouth. So in this particular case, she may well hear from word of mouth from other mums, or word of mouth for the kids hear from word of mouth from other kids. But we've also identified here that Facebook news feeds are going to be important for Jenny, in shares and sponsored posts from our side. The media has changed again here in that we know that she's probably going to go online next. So that's where that's the media that we're going to be addressing in that 0 moment of truth. Okay, when she's doing her research. So it's going to be our web page, our Facebook page. She's probably going to use Google search, searching for the name. Or, when you've done your keyword research, you'll understand. And YouTube, review sites, retailer sites, all that sort of stuff. Okay. Again, the media changes again. When in the first moment of truth, we know at this stage she's actually in store at this point. So therefore, we can use taste teams, we can use POS, trays and buckets and bins, aisle signage, all that sort of stuff. All right. So the thing to remember here is that the media changes in each of the phases because the context changes and the messaging has changed. So you can now begin to see that we have all the elements that we would require for briefing all sorts of things. Okay, so for example, if we want to know what messaging to put in our advertising, etc., there's the messaging and there's the media that we're going to put it in. If we know that we need a website, we now know that the content that needs to go on the website, we need to have this basic messaging in our website and this basic messaging on a Facebook page and all that sort of stuff. So this should really begin to simplify all the marketing noise you as a CEO are getting from your marketing team, or even if you're being blinded by media salespeople saying, "Oh yes, come and use our agency to do your Facebook ads and all that sort of stuff." If Facebook ads don't appear in your customer journey or in your customer journey analysis or the media analysis of your customer journey work, of your framework, then don't do it. okay? Or ask the salesperson what messaging, or you can say to the salesperson what messaging you want to put in there and how you want it to be used. The second thing is the thing to remember is your aim here is to get people from the stimulus and awareness phase right through to the ultimate moment of truth and back round again as much as you possibly can. So you take them from step to step to step. So in any of these communication media or items that you put out there or contents you put out there, there's two basic requirements. One, you need to answer the need with that messaging. And the second thing is you need to shuffle them or persuade them to go through to the next phase. All right, so that would be the call to action. So you have your basic content and the call to action. So in this case, we know that in here our messaging is here, but to get people into this next phase, we want them to go online. So you might have that piece of communication with a strap line saying, see us on or visit online, or if it's in the Facebook news feed shares or the sponsored post, for example, it might be you might put a link in here saying, come and have a look at our website or come and look at our Facebook page. Yeah. You might be trying to stimulate word of mouth from other mums by saying, yeah, check out just search for XYZ brand online, or search for frozen pizza kits or whatever it may be. So that you're providing the call to action of what you want them to do next to get them through to the funnel. All right. So again, you're simplifying what you're doing. You're breaking down how you deliver your media, saying from stimulus and awareness into the zero, into the first, into the second, into the ultimate. That's our primary aim. Final crucial point to remember, that depending on your product and brand and the situation that you're in at the time spent in each phase will vary, but customers will not miss out a step in the process. All right. The only time where they might is where they miss out the awareness phase, because your ultimate moment of truth has provided that already. But in fact, actually, you could consider the ultimate moment of truth when somebody tells you about a great product or a bad product or whatever it may be as the stimulus and awareness phase. But the thing is that they don't miss out a step. So you don't hear about something and then immediately run out and buy it. You will do some form of consideration. Sometimes you won't be aware of it. So for the classic example I always give is buying Polar Mints. You might actually be in the queue in the petrol station going to buy your fuel, and you'll see that from the point of sale there, item is demonstrating and making you aware of Polar Mints, and you look at Polar Mints and go, oh yeah, actually I could do with some Polar Mints. Oh, but do I want to try the Trebor ones, or no, I'll take the Polar Mints. So that zero moment of truth might have been half a second long, but people still went through it. Okay. So what have we got at this stage? We have determined who we are going to tell and what and where we are going to deliver the messaging. Okay. You can now create a task list and a marketing plan off that basic customer framework. And you can also start looking at how you're going to provide some accurate cost forecasts. Really, I hear you asking? Well, yep, keep watching. So, how do we apply all of that, what we've just learned on creating a framework and customer personas and value propositions, etc.? How can we then apply that to our overall business planning? Well, again, just to quickly remind you, don't forget about this five phase process, or the moment of truth theory. And bear in mind, don't forget that we created this customer journey framework with the needs, messaging, and media on it. So the next step in essentially building a plan is really quite a simple action. What I'd like you to do is, once you've done that, is go to your PowerPoint page or wherever you've saved it and literally copy the contents of the media column into an Excel sheet. And then we're going to build the plan, then you build your plan to the right. So essentially, let me just take that back, is that what you do is you copy that right-hand column of the media and you just drop it into a the left-hand column of an Excel page. And in this case, I've given it the name requirement. And then you start building your plan to the right, and it will change for every business. But in this particular case, what we've done is, okay, how are we going to achieve the requirement that I have in that left-hand column? And this, as I say, will depend on your business, because you might, or your existing business, because you might already have certain web pages, you might already have email campaigns set up, etc. So this is what I need to do next. And then to the right of that again, you would then cost it. Now, like the first bit, is entirely up to you and your business. Depends entirely what media is in your media plan and how many people you need to talk to, etc. And every business is different, and how you cost it depends on how you account for time and money within your business. So, for example, if your media framework or your customer journey framework, your marketing framework has a lot of content marketing online, then the media cost in that could be considered as free, or you might like to put in a cost for the time that you have an employee creating that content for you. All right, so it's very difficult to show the detail here of how to cost the plan, because it depends entirely on your existing business. But the basic idea is take the right-hand column of the marketing framework and drop it into the left-hand column of an Excel sheet, and then build to the right from there. It might end up looking something like this. Okay. This was, again, the pizza company, but they had a launch phase, and then they had an ongoing per week costs and the number of weeks that they were going to run it for, and so on. They also had some existing assets as well, such as websites, etc. Now, again, note that this applies to one customer journey only. So if you have got 3 or 4 customers or customer personas created, then you can then start doing this per customer journey or customer persona, and then adding them all together, creating a much larger plan. The most common question at this point is, how do I cost the media in the stimulus awareness phase? Well, the most common answer is start with the cost per thousand. So, for example, an email list might cost you £150 per 1,000 plus the distribution cost of £30, i.e. how much it costs to send each email, per £1,000. So therefore, a 10,000 reach would be 150 times 10 plus 30 equals 1530. Note that that doesn't include the time for creating the content of the email, and so on and so forth. It would be the same again for a newspaper ad. It would be start with the cost per 1,000, and so on. But other media will have other ways to cost it. So here's an example of Facebook's planning tool, media booking tool, which will give you a very good estimate. You can put in all the criteria of your customer persona and where you might find them, etc., and build up your target audience profile, and it will then start spitting out how much people it's going to reach and at what cost to you. Bear in mind, this would be a cost per click. And Facebook have something very similar. Google Ads will do something similar again in Google, for search, and then there are various other tools out there that will give you some idea of what, or organic search engine optimization, what keywords will drive what traffic to what pages for you. So costing the plan is pretty different per each business, and you have to look at your own media plan and decide how you're going to do that. The next thing we're going to look at is the funnels and pipelines. And the idea here is that we're going to take all the previous work up to this point to try and visually create the funnels that we have. And there's one particular concept in here that is really important to you. So again, we have our 5 phases in the moment of truth theory: the stimulus, the zero, the first, the second, and the ultimate, etc. And based on the media plan that we've just costed, we can then start saying how many we are going to, what sort of quantities we're going to get in that stimulus and awareness phase. And then by understanding what quantities we have in that stimulus awareness phase, we can start taking some good guesses as to how many people are going to come into a zero moment of truth and how we're going to quantify that. So the example that we've used at this point has been that zero moment of truth was when they went online. So for example, we can then start using our website data to tell us how many people we estimate are coming into that zero moment of truth. Once again, every business is different, and the thing to remember here is you're working on best guess. So don't ask your accountant to do this. These numbers are never going to be absolutely accurate, particularly when you're doing guesstimates right at the start. What you want to be doing is laying down a baseline of your best guess estimates. And so zero moment of truth, your guess of, if you get 350, in this case, if you get 350 into your zero moment of truth, then you would reckon that you're going to get 117 into the first, second, third, and so on. We then can create what is referred to as the magic 9, and this is, or what I refer to as the magic 9 numbers, okay, for your KPIs. So you can monitor your business on a daily basis or a weekly basis or a monthly basis based on these 5 magic 9 numbers, and those are the 5 quantities that we just identified. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the conversion rates between each one. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So 5 plus 4 equals 9. And this magic 9 will give you a rough reflection of your business performance from week to week or day to day, etc. By understanding how many people you have in your stimulus and awareness phase, they go all the way through the phase to making a purchase, to talking about your ultimate moment of truth, etc. You can then have a very good idea of what your funnel looks, or sorry, the sales and marketing performance of your business. You might consider that the second moment of truth might be a part of the production side of your business. So to improve the conversion rate from second moment of truth to ultimate moment of truth might be there's something to do in your customer services department, and not so much a marketing issue but a customer services issue. Or it might be a quality issue if your cars that you sell keep breaking down, for example. That would be a quality issue which then reflects on the customer side of it, on the production side of your business. These numbers are only useful if you get into the habit of consistently collecting and reviewing the data. Or you have the ability to retrospectively easily pull the data out to give you a retrospective of how the business performed, which might then tell you how the business is going to perform going forwards. How else can we use this? Well, you can use this process in the Magic 9 to start understanding how you're going to sweat your assets and which assets you're going to push and pull and why. So if I was to ask you in this particular example, how am I going to double my sales or increase my sales by 50%? All right. The simple answer would be, if each one of my sales is profitable, the quickest way to do that will be to change this quantity from 70,000 to 105,000, i.e. 70,000 plus 50%. Now, that would carry the intrinsic media costs that go with it, etc. But if the business is capable of handling the capacity and you can do it profitably, that's the quickest and easiest way to do it, to increase your business by 50%. But the clever way would be to say, actually, why don't I increase each one of the phases, the conversion rate in each one of the phases, by 15%? That's actually a much easier task than or certainly probably a much cheaper task than piling more money in at the top. So if I did that, this is what would happen. I have my original 70,000, so my media cost is exactly the same as it was beforehand, but I've increased 0.005 or 5 in every 1,000 conversion rate to 575. And subsequently, if I have increased that conversion rate from 0.333, that number goes to that, which means that I have 402 people rather than 350 in my 0 moment of truth, and I there consequently have 154 in rather than 117, etc. And so here we go with our second moment of truth has gone from 9 to 6, and our ultimate truth has gone from 2 to 3. So rather than simply spending more money at the top of the funnel, what we're actually trying to do is widen the funnel and get more people through each of those phases. Now, I can't tell you how to do that at this stage because, again, it depends on your customer journey and the funnel that they're coming through. But what you need to be then looking at the detail of each of the number of people and the type of people and the actions of the people in each phase, and then saying, how can I improve that by 15%? How can I improve my call to action, or how can I improve them coming from one phase into the other by 15%? And this is where split testing comes in, and A/B testing you might have heard a lot about. I compare one page, I might run two web pages, driving traffic to both of them, and have one where I might change the color of the button, or the buy now button, or whatever it may be, from red to blue. Or I might change the picture being used in my ad and split test one picture versus another picture where everything else in the ad stay the same. If I'm selling business to business, I might change the text or the script for my salespeople on the telephone, and so on. But it's all about testing and adjusting and testing and adjusting. And any clients of mine will know that at this stage, this is where I start talking about the ability to fail fast, forward, and cheap. Fail being that the only way you learn or you improve is by small failure. Little failures till something works, then more little failures, something works, and you keep the things that work and you bin the things that are little failures. Want to know more about that? I'm pretty sure there's a blog post about it on my blog, or just go online and start looking at learning from failure, searching marketing, learning from failure, and that sort of stuff. Okay. Again, if an agency comes to you and says, yes, we intend to fail, it's actually usually quite a positive sign because they're understanding this concept of fail fast, forward, and cheap. So as you can see, there we go. We've highlighted the 70,000 staying the same, and we increase 6 to 9 and 2 to 3. So in summary, you now have the basic tools to either build your own basic marketing strategy or know what to look for in someone else's one. As a reminder, to get to this point, we have created at least one customer persona, preferably 3, no more than 5. We've defined the value proposition for that customer persona. We've outlined the customer journey for that customer persona. We then created a marketing framework. We then started being able to build an accurate revenue forecast and done some basic analysis on how to fatten the funnel. What you can do next is, if you have the basic exercises completed for all your products and niches, you now have the ability to create a splash page in Excel that will tell you how your business marketing activity is performing and give you a temperature check before it's too late, i.e. if something fails, your KPI should have picked it up relatively earlier on in the process. So if you're only monitoring your sales and they suddenly stop or slow down 1 week, you'll probably find that if you look at the retrospective data, there were some indications 1, 2, 3 weeks earlier on as to why that might be happening. You can understand what features might be appropriate to your business to help automate your marketing. So if somebody tries to sell you a tool such as Salesforce or Marketo or all those other big ones, they're very expensive investments. And so before doing so, make sure you understand your customer journeys and how those tools are going to help improve the performance of those funnels. You can understand what staff or external agencies your business will need and have all the relevant information to brief them properly. In your customer framework page, that combined with your customer personas and your value proposition work gives you all the basic information for briefing advertising agencies or Facebook agencies or web developers, etc. Because you then are able to say, this is who I'm talking to, this is the messaging that I want to give them, and this is the call to action that I need to get them into that next phase. And very clear, simple brief. You can forecast how new products can be launched and what traction will be gained. You can do everything we've just done as a thought experiment and saying, if I had a product that did this, this is the type of customer that would buy it. Therefore, this is the journey that they would go through. Therefore, I can start making some assumptions about the funnel, and this is what our baseline plan is going to be. And as a consequence, you should now have the basic idea of how you can confidently plan for growth.
Well done. You've made it through to the end. Hopefully in the last 50 minutes or so, you've seen how you can release the information in your own head and to start creating the basics of a marketing strategy. Please note that you didn't need a huge amount of tech, or you won't need a huge amount of tech. Essentially what you need is one blank wall, a packet of post-it notes, and one Excel sheet. What you need to do now is take that information and make some transformation. Doesn't have to be a huge amount of transformation at all, even if it's only some transformation in your own thinking. To do that, what you can do is you can rewind back through the video and watch it all again and start taking thicker notes, etc. Or if you feel that you might be able to, or you would like some help from me, then frankly, just either visit me at www.bucknell.info, or you can use the form just below this video. Just give me a few details, send the form, and I will try and get back to you as soon as I can. Note that it won't be a member of my team that gets back to you, it'll be me personally. Otherwise, I wish you all the best of luck, and I hope this last 50 minutes of your life that you might not ever get back has been useful. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.